Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Fighting and I podcast. This is episode 4. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to everyone that's listened to the previous 3 podcasts and gave me a like. I really appreciate that. Let's talk about the fights that have just gone. That was Holland and Brunson. A decent-ish card in terms of finishes, but in terms of sort of fight depth, it was lacking. That unfortunately lost to quite an interesting fight in Brad Riddell and Greg Gillespie due to some COVID issues, which I'll cover in just a second. But we unfortunately lost that matchup, so the main real fight that I was mostly interested in is the Brunson and Holland fight. But we'll get to that in just a minute. So like I said earlier, there was some COVID complications, and this was later revealed that Alexander Volkanovski, who was due to defend his championship against Brian Ortega this weekend, unfortunately tested positive for COVID. He had 2 negative tests beforehand, and then just before he entered the UFC bubble, I believe, he tested negative. So his fight, Brad Riddell's, obviously, and Shane Young's fight have all been called off due to this. They will be rebooked later down the line. They've not been scrapped, they've just been postponed, I believe. Paulo Costa has also pulled out of his fight with Robert Whittaker, so Kelvin Gastelum was going to step in, and we're going to get to see that fight. We were meant to see that on a card in Australia for the middleweight championship, but unfortunately, I believe Robert Whittaker got a hernia literally 24 hours before the event, and had to pull out. So they made Israel Adesanya and Anderson Silva the main event for 3 rounds, but we're going to get to see that fight finally. It'd be interesting to see how Kelvin Gastelum deals with Robert's quick striking. He's really high fight IQ. He's got brilliant leg kicks. Obviously, his 1-2 head kick is stuff of legend. And his wrestling's not half bad either, so it'd be interesting to see what Kelvin can do to sort of nullify Robert's game and his hot streak at the minute. But in other news, Khabib has retired. I think I woke up Sunday, Monday. I think it was yesterday. To news that Dana White had finally accepted the fact that Khabib's not coming back. And they plan to move on. I think the target at the minute, Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler, which will be a good fight. Makes sense in the rankings and just makes sense in general. It's a good scrap. But that's all of the news that I can think of to late and that I can find. Let's talk about this Brunson Holland card. I'll talk about a few of the finishes that were quite good. On the prelims, there was a really good finish in Leonardo Santos and Grant Dawson. In between rounds 2 and 3, James Krause had a good conversation with Grant Dawson. And then, like the last 5 to 3 seconds, Leonardo Santos was on his back with, I think, just sort of resting. With like a leg lock position, while Grant Dawson was stood up, and then Grant Dawson just started hammer fisting him from the top, and finished Leonardo Santos before the fight went to decision. So he got a nice finish. Montel Jackson also got a nice KO. He was obviously predicted to get a KO. He's been riding quite high, a lot of power in bantamweight, and he's definitely an interesting prospect to keep an eye on. And really, that's it in prelims. Like I said, the card itself had some good fights in terms of finishes, but the actual depth is lacking, if you will. But when we move on to the main card, obviously Tai Tuivasa knocked out Harry Hunsucker. Yeah, not much to say really. Tai Tuivasa got an easy win against Harry Hunsucker. Now he's probably going to skyrocket into the heavyweight division because he's dead, and there's not much going on with it at the minute apart from Silgain and I guess Tom Aspinall and Ngannou. But we move up slightly to the second fight on the main card, and it was quite a good fight, to be fair. Adrian Yanez took on Gustavo Lopez, and Adrian Yanez looks a lot like pre-resurrection Jorge Masvidal, but he got a beautiful 1-2. It looked like Gustavo was just trying to do like a switch hook. Did like the weird Jorge Masvidal switch left hook, or lead hook, sorry. And Adrian Yanez just read that, stepped back slightly, and just 1-2 straight down the middle and connected with a beautiful combination and just put him clean. Good stoppage from the ref. It didn't really need to go on anymore. It looked like Lopez was done. It was a beautiful combination. And then there was a bit of a shit fight in Montserrat Ruiz and Cheyenne Baez. I'm probably butchering both their names, and I apologise. But yeah, it's just a bit of a boring fight. Montserrat Ruiz held a headlock position for about 14 minutes, and looked terrible on the feet in terms of striking. And then didn't really do anything with the position or hunt any submissions, just chose to keep her there. Then there was a little bit of drama after the fight. Apparently, I think Ruiz spat at Baez, so Baez was said to, "I will follow you home, bitch." So yeah, a weird fight. Very, very weird. Very shit. And then Max Griffin knocked out Keenan Song. Again, another sort of 1-2. It might have been a hook, but it looked more like a sort of a jab straight. As Keenan was sort of circling off with the cage. Good performance for Max Griffin. He's a good little fighter. He's got wins over, that Mike Perry. He's a fantastic fighter. Well, I wouldn't say fantastic. He's a decent fighter at 170. He was obviously the co-main because of the Riddell Gillespie fight being called off. But yeah, again the card's a little bit shallow. What can you do? Anyway, main event, we've got 5 rounds to talk about. Whew. So, firstly, I was very wrong in my... Well, I wouldn't say very wrong, but I was incorrect in my assumption last week when I said this should be an easy win for Holland. I underestimated calm Derek Blondeson, and he's shown that he's now a meme fighter like C-Level Kane or TRT Vitor. He's up there, but he's knocked off 2 surging contenders in his previous prospects in his previous fights with a decision win over a pretty dominant decision win over Kevin Holland, and also a stoppage over Edmund Shabazian. It was it wasn't great, but it wasn't bad. Like, some of the striking exchanges were really good. Holland looked decent in spots. Most of the time when he was striking, he was sort of lunging forward and really trying to overextend with his strikes, which was allowing Brunson to capitalise and go, do some clinch work, attempt to take down or even take him down. He just was a little bit too erratic, I think, searching for the knockout. I think he'd seen some of Brunson's previous losses and some of the previous knockouts and thought, yeah, it's going to be an easy night, and didn't expect Brunson to be as wily and crafty. But some really nice takedowns from Brunson, to be honest, in this fight, and some really good control time. He didn't choose to do a lot with it. He sort of just accepted full guard or whatever position that they fell into and would work from there. He wouldn't try to move into a more dominant position if he was in full guard. He did almost get, he looked like he locked in an arm triangle, but Holland did a good job of answering the phone, where you put obviously the hand where the hand what they're trying to, basically where the head is next to, put that next to your ear, and that'll stop the circulation being cut the fuck off. But Holland did a good job of answering the phone and didn't get submitted, and they carried on. But it was a long fight. Brunson was asking for advice from Khabib in between the rounds. The first round, it was a little bit funny, but at that point, it didn't really take the fight seriously. It didn't seem like he was in it. He was just there to get the money, to get paid after sort of the second and third round, and then he slowly started to get more tired, and Holland got more takedown control. I think let's take a look at how much control time Holland got. Brunson got. To be fair, the strikes were a lot more. The significant strikes were a lot more close than I expected. The actual strikes tipped in the favour of Brunson with 226 total strikes landed. He got 6 takedowns, 16 minutes of control time in a 5-round fight, 25 minutes, which is pretty good. That's most of the fight you've controlled. Over half of the fight you've controlled on the floor. Holland interestingly took Holland down in the last round, and that's the first time Brunson got taken down. But it was disappointing to watch for Holland, because I really wanted to see him get further and further and further, and losing to Brunson's it's not disappointing. It's not sort of like, it's disappointing, sorry, but it's not. He's only lost to the elite of the elite. If you look at his losses to Yoel, Jacare twice, Adesanya. Every loss he's had, barring the Anderson Silva loss, because a lot of people thought he won that decision. He's lost to the highest caliber fighters. The real cream of the crop up at 185. So losing to him is not sort of like a huge chink in your... It shouldn't be a huge chink, because he's only lost to the best of the best. It just shows that you've just got a little bit more improving, but beating him shows that you are up there with the elite. So it's upsetting to see Kevin Holland not capitalise on anything and make any... The issue is that he didn't really make any real attempt to get out of the position. So, for example, when Brunson was holding him in full guard, Holland would accept that as well and wouldn't move or wouldn't try to get out of it. He'd sort of just lie there and try to trade strikes and try to get, like another freak knockout. It just wouldn't work. Brunson was just too crafty and too wily and just nullified what Kevin Holland's best at, which that long distance striking. He made Holland lunge in, overcommit to strikes, and then he'd capitalise with a quick takedown, and it's a good performance from Brunson. It's nice to see Brunson get a win, because he is a very good fighter. He's got wins over good fighters, fantastic fighters. So to see him get a win is fantastic for him, because he deserves it. He's a great fighter. He's been in the top 10 for 185 forever, it seems like. Top 15 as well, sorry. So we move on to next week's, because that was really all of the most interesting fights from last week. But yeah, a bit with everything that's going on, and normal. This is like sort of normal pattern. Is UFC will some of the cards aren't, especially some of the free cards aren't great. They are just sort of like filler cards in between the big pay-per-view events. But some of them are amazing. Some of them are very stacked. This one unfortunately wasn't. But in regards to the next week's fight, going on March 28th, UFC 260. This is the Big Daddy. Was originally scheduled to have 2 title fights. The aforementioned Ortega Volkanovski fight got postponed because of the COVID implications, so now it's just Stipe and Francis at the top of the bill, and then Woodley and Vicinte Luque have moved into the co-main. We've also got Sean O'Malley making his return after the Chito Vera loss against Thomas Almeida, and then Jamie Malarkey and Camel Worthy have moved up to the sort of opening slot on the card. But yeah, obviously the Shane Young fight's also been scrapped off that card as well. Modestas Bukauskas, I think that's what his name is, returns against... I'm not going to try pronounce his last name, but it looks like it's Michael or Michelle, and his last name's just mental. But obviously Modestas got knocked out by Jimmy Crute in his last fight, so it's coming off a loss for him. See if he can bring this back in and get another win in the in the light heavyweight division, I believe that is. Is it? It is. Light heavyweight. What else is there? Oh, yes. Khabib's cousin, Abu Bakr Nurmagomedov. I don't know if I said his first name right. I probably didn't, and I apologise, but I know I definitely said his last name right. He comes back. I believe his last fight in the UFC was a loss. Yes, he got submitted by David Zawada. On the UFC Fight Night Moscow, which is obviously thoroughly disappointing for him. His last name carries a lot of weight and a lot of expectation, and unfortunately got submitted, which just was a little bit more salt in the open wound. But let's talk about the top three. The top three, the big heavy hitters figuratively and literally. Talk about Sean O'Malley and Thomas Almeida first. Obviously, Thomas Almeida is a fantastic fighter. If you want any fights to watch watch any fights of his to watch to sort of brush up on your knowledge, give him versus Brad Pickett a watch. That is a great fight. Thomas Almeida really came in on a hot streak into UFC. I think it went, sort of like 5-0 before losing to Cody Garbrandt, and then hasn't won a fight since, I believe. Yeah, then lost a decision, and then got knocked out, and then got decisioned again. So it's been a rough time for Thomas Almeida down at bantamweight. But regardless of that, he's still a fantastic fighter. He's still got a fantastic record as well. 22-4. It's not like he's in the double digits in regards to his losses. He's still a fantastic product, and a great Brazilian fighter. He's got mean leg kicks. He's got fantastic Muay Thai combinations. And then on the opposite side, you've got Sean O'Malley. In his last fight, his leg got damaged by one leg kick by Marlon Chito Vera, and I can guarantee. Well, I can't guarantee, but I can almost. I'd confidently put a pound on that Thomas Almeida's leg kicks hurt more than Marlon Chito Vera's. Because I don't know, just Brazilians and leg kicks, man. It's just like I can't even think of the word to describe it. It's that they go together that much. It's such a chef's kiss pairing. Obviously, O'Malley also coming off his first loss and his only loss, but he says it's not a loss, to Marlon Chito Vera, as we said previously, it was ground and pound stoppage, but the initial issue that caused that was the leg kick that caused him to sort of go down, and then Chito folded him down to the floor and finished him with ground and pound. So it's a big test for Sean to see. He's already dealt with the loss in a fucking weird way on Twitter and online by saying he's undefeated, he's not lost. He might just be memeing it because he knows people find him weird and cringy in a way. But it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with the loss, and how he's improved. Well, not improved because it's a sort of freak accident. You can't help your leg giving away, but what he's done to adjust it and see how he's going to look. Because when he came back from his last issue, when he had all that issue with USADA, and then obviously he broke his foot in his fight with Andre Sukumtath. He came back against Quinones. Cannot remember his first name. I shall tell you in. There you go, Jose Quinones. Yeah, so couldn't remember his name. I know his last name was Quinones. But when he came back against Jose Quinones, he got a blistering knockout, and then again against Eddie Wineland, he got a one-shot, beautiful, straight down the middle, connected beautifully with Eddie Wineland's chin, and just went boop. He went clean out, and then obviously he had the Marlon Vera loss. But like I said, I'm interested to see how he's handled that loss in terms of his fighting ability, because we know Thomas Almeida can handle the loss well. He's come off several losses now, 3 unfortunately in the UFC. So there's going to be a different fire lit under him, because he's fighting for his job at this point. One more loss could get him cut, but a win over Sean would catapult him a little bit higher than he is now, because he's Sean's become such a polarizing figure in MMA and in the UFC. So a good fight, a really, really interesting fight for both fighters. A good style matchup in terms of striking. Like I said, Thomas Almeida's got fantastic kicks and great Muay Thai combinations, and Sean O'Malley's just tricky and got a really weird fighting style. So that'd be interesting to see how that fight plays out and see what occurs. And then we move on to the co-main. Rap game, Tyrone Woodley versus Vicinte Luque. This could be a terrible fight for Tyrone Woodley. A terrible, terrible fight. If we look at all 3 of his last losses, he hasn't won a round since his Darren Till fight. think was 2018. Yeah, 2018. He's lost 14 consecutive rounds against, albeit against high pressure wrestlers. Apart from Gilbert Burns, he's more of a he's jiu-jitsu, but he can take you down. He can also control you. You know, he has got good wrestling. So high level MMA fighters, if you will, who mix up both striking and wrestling, have easily controlled him throughout 25 minutes. Well, apart from the Colby fight because he got injured. So, and every time after one of his losses, he said, "I'm reinvigorated. I'm this. I'm that. I'm all ready." And then he gets 50-45 again. And Vicinte Luque's got fantastic pressure. Now, he doesn't wrestle as much as, say, Colby, Gilbert, and Kamaru, but he does have it there. He has submitted people before and he has wrestled people before. But he's striking. He's got, we've seen it. We've seen his fights against Wonderboy, Ryan Barberina. He just marches forward. He's got a big head and he can absorb a lot of damage. Doesn't get finished a lot. I don't think he's been finished. He may have been finished. Let's check. Let's not check. Can't be asked to check. He may have been finished, but in the UFC, I don't think he's been finished as of yet. He's just he's a brilliant fighter. He's so strong. His combinations are fantastic. Trains with Gilbert Burns, so he's already got some experience on how to beat. Already got knowledge on how to beat Tyrone Woodley in terms of the training knowledge and the information from Gilbert from their fight. That gives him another edge over Tyrone. So I'd say this fight for Tyrone again is make or break, just like Thomas Almeida is make or break. You've been dominated in your last 3 fights quite convincingly. You didn't have any huge moments in any of the other fights. You were champion, and this fall from grace has to be one of the hardest ones because it's not like he's getting knocked out and his chin shot and he's old. He's getting beat. He's getting beat for 25 minutes. So it's a 15-minute fight. Now, this could mean he puts on a little bit more pressure because with what we've seen from Tyrone in 25-round fights, unless you come towards him and he can get a read on your striking, he's not really going to put on much pressure and much of a pace because he's scared he's going to gas himself out over 25 minutes. So with it being a 15-minute fight, there's definitely some interest there to see if he now, with the knowledge that it's 15 minutes, that he's got he's 10 less extra minutes to think about and worry about in terms of his gas tank. If he uses that to push up against to push Vicinte to breaking point, because we know he's got the power, we know he's got the ability. He used to look like a world beater when he went on the run to the title. He was fantastic. And then even some of his defences, his fights against Wonderboy, albeit controversial. His first fight, in my opinion, was absolutely fantastic. I didn't enjoy the second fight. I've actually not watched it. But I did watch the first fight, and I loved the first fight. And his fight with Tilly, Montel. So he's got that ability in him, and he's got it in him to come forward and put on a pace, but he just needs to win, I'd say. And Vicinte, if he does beat Tyrone, it's a big feather in his cap because he's sort of become like the Damian Maia. If we look at who's beat him, Kamaru, obviously that was for a champion that's a little bit different. But if you look at Colby and Gilbert, if you look at Colby and it is Gilbert Burns. Yeah, it is Gilbert Burns. What am I talking about? I'm getting confused with Gilberts. But if you look at Colby Covington, sorry, I was going to say Cody Garbrandt. My mind is shot. If you look at Colby Covington and if you look at Gilbert Burns, you see once they won that fight, obviously, well, I don't know, because Colby beat him, obviously didn't get a title shot, but Gilbert did, so I don't know. I mean, if you beat him, you've definitely got talks there to be in the top 5, top 10, or a lot higher than what you're at now, so it's going to be an interesting fight. It's make or break for Tyrone, and if Vicinte can pull it off, it's going to be wunderbar, because this does have the chance to be a certified banger if Tyrone Woodley chooses to move forward. Even if he doesn't, it's probably going to get pieced apart by Vicinte, so hey how. And then finally, we have the literal heavy hitters and the big boys in the main event. Stipe Miocic and Francis Ngannou. They are rematching after their 2017. Yeah, their 2017 affair. Obviously, the first fight went to Stipe in dominant fashion. 2018 affair. Oh, my bad. In his 2018 affair with Francis Ngannou, obviously Stipe weathered the absolute monstrosity that was Francis Ngannou at the time, and just comfortably wrestled him and boxed him up and just made Francis unable to do anything. Francis just looked like a drunk baby after that. Like during the rounds, his legs, you could tell he was tired and he was fatigued because there was just nothing to his body. Now since that fight, Ngannou has again climbed up the rankings and up the ladder to title contention, dispatching Junior Dos Santos, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, and bloody hell, somebody else. But that was it. Sorry, Curtis Blades. But the biggest question was after the Derek Lewis fight, for one, was is he scared to be the bulldozer that he was previously? His 3 fights after that proved no. But the biggest question after the Stipe fight was, has his wrestling improved? We still haven't seen his wrestling. We haven't seen Francis get taken down. They tried to, obviously, Cain Velasquez tried to take him down, but he got knocked out, or his knees gave away, or whatever the situation was with that fight. But we haven't seen someone do to Francis what Stipe did. And I'm not saying that makes Francis out of the fight, but what I'm saying is it's all the same hype from the first fight. He's knocked everyone out that he's fought, he's blistered through people, blah, 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 blah. But we haven't seen him wrestle. We haven't seen what he's like in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th and 5th round after having somebody like Stipe, a highly technical heavyweight with great boxing and even better takedowns and wrestling, do that to you. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen that from him. We haven't seen if he has changed or if he has improved or if his skills have increased. We've just seen him knock everybody out in less than 2 minutes again. So, forgive me, but I can't believe the Francis hype. I just think Stipe will comfortably pick Francis apart again, just because I don't think Francis has the ability to out-wrestle Stipe. At the end of the day, I just don't see it going well for Francis. Unless he knocks him out, obviously, I think in my humble opinion, it's knockout, or you're going to get... It's going to get the same as the first fight. But the thing is, if Francis tries to bull rush forward, there's going to be opportunity there for Stipe to do a reactive takedown, hit a double leg, hit a single leg, sort of step out of the way, or even get him in a clinch, or even strike back. Stipe showed fantastic head movement in the first fight and in other fights. He's a great boxer. He's a fantastic boxer. So, and he's a lot more technical than Francis, whereas Francis is raw power and brute strength. Stipe's is more combinations in bunches, a little bit of pep in his punches when he's ending the combinations as opposed to all of them. He really times his strikes well and mixes everything up, likes to go with a little, doesn't throw in too many kicks, but just to sort of, just to offset the balance of the of his opponent. So, I can't doubt Stipe. The blips on his career with the Daniel Cormier knockout, I can't. You've got to think that after fighting Stipe for 25 minutes, and he still took some big shots. Didn't get knocked out, but still took some big shots from Ngannou. Then fighting heavyweight DC after, getting knocked out. I don't think his chin's shot at all, because we saw him in the 2nd and 3rd fight with DC. He didn't get knocked out, and his chin held up fantastically. Obviously, DC and Francis, two completely different pedigrees in terms of striking. Yeah, man, I don't know. I just don't see Francis, unless he can knock him out early, or unless Francis has found a way to carry his power into the later rounds and reserve a little bit of stamina and not go as crazy as he does. And for example, his fights with Jairzinho Rozenstruik, if you look at that fight, as he's lunging and going crazy, there's so many openings. You can see, obviously, if you got someone with good vision and good head movement and cage awareness, they're not going to get caught with that. They're going to move out the way, and they're going to, they're going to duck and bump into you, or they're going to take you down. It's just going to be a long night, I think, for Francis. Obviously, that could be completely wrong. Could go out and knock him out, or fucking Francis could go out and out-wrestle Stipe for 25 minutes. But from what I've seen from Francis since his first fight with Stipe, and what I've seen from Stipe, you can't deny Stipe's ability and his prowess in terms of fighting. So I'm so interested in that. Their first fight is one of my favourite heavyweight fights of all time. The first round is my favourite, just because of that's when Francis is at his most dangerous, and Stipe does such a fantastic job of nullifying Francis. He obviously, like I said, he does get hit with strikes, but Stipe just weathered them and put on and just wrestle fucked Francis. But that's all up and coming next week. I'm thoroughly excited for that card. You know, the top 3 fights is a little bit top heavy, with the 3 fights with Vicinte, Tyrone, Woodley, Ngannou, Stipe, and Almeida and O'Malley. So we'll talk about the outcomes of those fights. I'm super excited. It should be a good card, providing nothing goes wrong. Touch wood, and everything stays now on course, and everything goes ahead as planned. But that's it, really. Not much else to talk about. Like I said, the fights that have just gone were a little bit shallow. And we've got some quite top heavy fights coming up on the upcoming card 260. But the next one after that will be 261, which will be the next big one after that. Sorry, will be 261, which will be a good card. Got some good fights on there, and I believe after this event is a fight night with Till and Vittori, which we'll cover and discuss, because that will be pretty sweet. But that's it. That's all the fights that interest me. For these less in-depth cards, like some of the fight nights, and even some of the fucking numbered events, sometimes I will start to try to do a little bit more in terms of researching some of the prelim fighters and some of the lesser known fighters, so I can just give a little bit more of a better breakdown and just a little bit more content in the terms of for the podcast. But until then, it's been a pleasure discussing the fights with yourselves. I hope you all enjoyed listening. This has been Kane, and thank you for tuning in. Tutty buys.